And just like that, she appears. Hello to everybody joining. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this episode. I should say we, but let's get to that. We'll get to that in a minute. So first and foremost, I am the one who puts the romance in Necromancer, the future ghost with the most, Vivian Noir. And tonight is a very special episode. If you guys have been following us on the it was like an old person, the TikTok and is that the Snapchat, the Instagram, we have a very special guest because this is a very special crossover episode with, a drum roll please, boom, this guy right here.
Who is it?
Who is it? I'm dying with suspense. Welcome, Jason of the Haunted Side and Cemetery Road.
Hello, everybody.
I have been looking forward to this episode ever since you pitched the idea and you were like, I went to the cemetery and it has a true crime angle. And I went, I mean, you didn't see me because I was on the phone, but I did this.
Yeah, it was when I went to this cemetery, the Peace Church Cemetery. I looked up some of the history before I got there and found out there was a true crime element to it. And so I immediately thought, well, I'm just going to put that in the back of my head. And next time I talk to Vivian, I should mention that to her. And just kind of, we put our heads together and we came up with a little double feature for you guys. And I'm so excited.
I know, me too. So basically the way this double feature is going to work is that we're going to do a very special Murder Corner episode with both myself and Jason doing amusing commentary during the true crime portion. And then when this episode ends, you guys are going to pop right over to Cemetery Road's channel where there's going to be the live premiere of the Peace Church Cemetery episode. So that's also right. Make sure you kind of tab out for a second, go like that video before you watch it. Go make sure you like it, go comment, do all that good stuff before we get started, all of the good things, because this one I was not actually familiar with. When you mentioned the name, I was like, who? And I was like Googling while we were on the phone because I was like, I never heard of this guy before. Really interesting. And it's one that like, I think kind of just got swallowed up by like circumstance and like, it just, I think happened in a time where, well, obviously there wasn't like crazy like news coverage like we have now. And it was like, I think not too long distant from the Starkweather crime spree. So it was like that one got all the attention on the news. That happened later. It was a way later. I think it was a couple years later. This one just kind of feel like slipped the radar. Like, honestly.
I had never heard of it either until I visited the cemetery, and you know, I look up as much as I can, but when I'm on the road, I don't have a whole lot of time. Plus, half the time I don't know where I'm going. Like, I'm going to a place and I'll be driving and cemetery, sure, cemetery. I'll go check it out. So it's not like I have, you know, a predetermined plan most times,
right?
But I get there and I usually look up the cemetery and see if there's anything interesting about it. This one did, so I wanted to learn more, and that's where you come in.
That's where I come in. So I come in with the details, and then bam, graves. Like, it's going to be awesome. Boom, cemetery. And a lot of times, how often when you're driving and like kind of detouring and doing these things, do you find like, because I mean, there's usually always somebody of somewhat note generally buried in some of these older cemeteries. Like, is this the first one with like a true? Yeah, and so is this like the first one with like a true crime angle, like that you've come across? Really,
as far as I know, while doing Cemetery Road, as far as I know, this was the first one that really had a true crime element there, or like you know, you see a lot of people who have been murdered.
Right.
I was in Virginia City. There's guys buried in there that were murdered and stuff.
Oh, but yeah, Wild Westerns. Yeah.
I accidentally went to the cemetery that who was she? Man, you put me on the spot, and now I'm totally blanking.
Like,
and the lady who chopped up her parents with an axe, supposedly.
Lizzie Borden.
Lizzie Borden was actually in a cemetery that I stopped at on the East Coast, and I didn't know that until the next day when I was like checking out the cemetery, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Lizzie Borden's buried here," and I'm just like, I could have found Lizzie Borden's grave. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, like, you felt the need to tell me this Now, when it's too late, jerks.
Yep.
I'd have been so mad. I'd have been like,
Turn around.
Where was this information
We're going back.
yesterday? Yeah, where was this yesterday? Where was this information yesterday? We're going back. Turn around.
Yep.
Turn around. So, without further ado, I guess, let's get into it. I'm going to pull up the video. I did another retro intro for this one, just because I felt like the time period of this particular case, again, which I never heard of this person before, I learned as I wrote the notes. So since it was appropriate for the time period, I felt like this fit nicely. But yeah, I'll let you guys be the determining factor on that. So without further ado, let's go. Not everyone rests in peace. Just ask Billy Cook. Or at least you could, if you could locate his grave inside the placid paths and fields of Peace Church Cemetery. But perhaps it's better that way. Because you see, Billy Cook was a notorious spree killer who killed 6 people on a 22-day-long cross-country rampage from Missouri all the way to California in 1950. Before Charlie Starkweather and Carol Ann Fugate shocked the nation with their murderous crime spree, there was William Edward Cook, Jr. Born in Joplin, Missouri in 1928, some say Billy Cook was just plain born bad. He was one of 10 siblings born to a down-and-out alcoholic miner and a troubled mother. When he was 5 years old, his mother, Laura May, died rather unexpectedly in the family home. So unexpectedly, in fact, that it was young Billy and his sister Betty that first discovered the body. So that's pretty fucked up.
That's a great start.
Already starting off strong with some people say he was just born bad. I was like, oh, damn. All right. We're already hitting hard with this one. Batting 1,000. Like, I mean, it looked like a baby. I don't know. Like, I was looking at that's really the only baby picture I could honestly find. And I was actually like surprised that I found it. But I'm like, it looks like a baby. How could you look at that baby and say it was born bad? It's not like it was born with a hook for a hand and was smoking a cigarette. Like, I don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't get it. He had the devil's eyes.
Just baby comes out with a stogie and a facial scar and just like, man, I like it, see? Man, I'm a baby.
He's already got a record.
Yeah. Comes out with the little number, the little cell number. Man. Come and catch me, copper. Man.
That's right.
Totally. 100%. Continue.
One can imagine the impact this must have had on the young man who would grow up with such internalized rage. A subsequent coroner's inquest determined a cerebral hemorrhage to be the cause of Laura May Cook's death, and it was even noted by the coroner that she had, quote, apparently been in good health an hour before her body was found. Her husband at the time, and Billy's father, William Cook Sr., was strangely left out of her obituary. No reason was ever given for this glaring omission, but perhaps William Cook Sr.'s future actions regarding the welfare of his own children spoke to a motive. After his wife's death, the senior Cook would move the entire family into an abandoned mine shaft where they lived like wild animals, eking out a meager existence until one day William Sr. abandoned the family entirely, leaving them only a small amount of supplies to survive on. Welfare workers would discover the children and placed them all in foster homes.
Well,
Father of the Year.
Father of the Year material, like he probably has a mug to prove it and everything. Like
I don't even understand the mindset of just like, well, I'm done here. I'm gonna leave you a couple scraps of food and some water, and I'm out of here, guys.
Here's a peanut butter sandwich. You'll be in my thoughts. Goodbye. Like, dude.
And then he peeks his head back and he's like, "You're not really gonna be in my thoughts. I'm not.
I'm not.
Care. I don't care.
I'll think of you every year. I won't."
Yeah.
And then just leaves. Yeah, like. Like,
and when people were like, oh, they were just like, he was just born bad, I'm like, I'm seeing a whole lot of stuff that was not in his favor, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, you starting off strong with the dead mom, finding mom dead on the floor. And then dad abandons you, not in a mining shack, because I had to go back and reread that like a couple times.
Yeah,
it was like a shaft, like in the actual mine, like they were raccoons. Like, I was like, it'd be different if it was like, okay, he found an abandoned mining building or an office or something, and like they stayed in there. No, here's a hole in the ground, kids. Merry Christmas.
Have you ever seen The Descent?
Yeah,
like
right.
People go spelunking, mine crawling, and they come across like creatures, like people that live underground and stuff, and they're all like, albino and they're blind. Yeah. And so I just imagine these social workers finding these kids, and they're just like, the light, like completely wild animals,
like little rat children.
They didn't have a chance to begin with. There was only one way out for these kids, and that was just in with a terrible life. Well, and it's as the story unfolds, it doesn't get any better. So you would think like, oh, and I thought that I was this is the uplifting part of the story, guys. Yeah, like his siblings get taken in by welfare services. Well, let's find out what happens to Billy, shall we? Because it's not so nice.
All except for young Billy. A congenital defect in his right eye that kept it from closing completely, paired with a reportedly churlish and belligerent demeanor, intimidated foster families and kept the boy from being adopted. It also earned him the nickname Cockeyed Cook.
The boy couldn't even close his damn eyes.
Like, your eyes are fucky. You don't deserve a home. Goodbye. Like, I was like, it was like, but not Billy. God damn, dude. Like,
yeah, that was a great place to stop. The children were all taken in by the welfare. Blah, 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 blah. Click. But not Billy.
Not Billy. Oh, no.
Billy got a messed up eye and a bad demeanor, guys. I don't know where he got that from.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Couldn't have been because he was abandoned in a mine shaft by his father after finding his mother dead. No. I don't understand why he's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah, I don't understand why a kid has behavior issues because he was left alone in a mine. like, and it's like, okay, I'm sure that didn't help the eye situation because obviously he was born, this is congenital, so he was born. It was a birth defect. Not really his fault. But I'm sure crawling around in a dirty freaking mine shaft didn't help that scenario at all. That just sounds like a recipe for pink eye for me. Like, I'm no, I'm not here for it.
Yep.
And then what's worse is like, I don't think anything happened to their dad. He just kind of like bummed on with his own life and was like, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Sucks to be you kids. Goodbye. Peace out.
Listen, you're better off in the hole. See ya.
Yeah, part of me wondered, I was like, was he trying to not actively, but passively kill them? Like, well, like, here you go, kids, go live in this dangerous hole. It's in God's hands now. Goodbye. Like, hoping that maybe they would just die in there. Yeah, exactly. It's pretty much what he did. It's like Thunderdome up in here.
Absolutely.
Parent of the year material. Anyways, Billy's off to a great start, so let's keep going.
He became a ward of the state, but eventually would be placed in a home solely in exchange for the court paying for his room and board. And unfortunately, the woman who took Cook in was more interested in a paycheck than she was in raising the boy properly. For 2 years in a row, Cook was given bicycles for Christmas, and they were immediately repossessed for lack of payment. As he entered his teenage years, the unsupervised Cook began to roam the streets at night and practice petty theft. At 12, he was arrested for truancy, but told the judge that he would rather be in a reformatory than be placed back in foster care.
That's a glaring thing. Like, I would rather go to child jail than go back into a foster home.
Like, I mean, people like this, the people who, they decide to make their career collecting checks from the state to take care of kids, and then they just don't do a good job with it whatsoever, makes me so angry.
Yeah.
Like, I hate it so much.
And it unfortunately, it's something that has continued and is still a problem in the foster system
Absolutely.
Still. So I was like, wow, the whole the gut punch moment for me was the fact that it's like, okay, they finally got somebody to take him, but basically it was for a paycheck. Like we're basically bribing you to take this kid to watch him. Yep. And then he got bicycles 2 years in a row and they got taken away both times. And then it was like, no wonder that, not that to excuse what he did, because it was obviously wrong what he did, but it's like, dude, I can see why he would go out and steal. The first thing he probably went out and stole was somebody's bicycle. Yeah. That's what I would have done. Be like, I'm gonna get that bicycle. I'm gonna get me that bicycle regardless. Give me that bike once and for all.
So far, we have not met any good people in this story, guys.
It's true. And by now he's already he's 12. I think he's in basically the reform school until he's about 15. So yeah, there's no upward arc here. There's nowhere to go but down. So here we go.
At least a few months later, he immediately robbed a cab driver of $11, earning himself a 5-year sentence in the reformatory. He would spend several years in detention, but violent outbursts there resulted in a trip to the state prison at 17. There, the sinister-looking youth with the lazy eye earned a reputation as a fighter, though jokes and comments about his deformity would not be taken lightly. Once, another inmate made a joke about Cook's drooping eyelid, and Cook assaulted him with a baseball bat, nearly killing him. Finally released from prison at 22, Cook returned to his hometown of Joplin just long enough for a brief reunion with his alcoholic father before hitting the road west to, quote, live by the gun and roam. He would drift as far as California, wandering aimlessly until he settled briefly in the town of Blythe, where he worked for a short time as a dishwasher until just before Christmas in 1950.
You like that quote action there? That slide with the quote action?
Heck That's right. So how did that reunion go? Remember me? Hey, you made it. See, I knew you had it in you.
See, I knew you were the good one. I knew you were the good egg.
Yeah.
Buy me a whiskey, child. Geez, yeah, I was like, I can't imagine that would have been an awkward homecoming. Hey, Dad, remember me? The last time you saw me is when I was 10 and you left me in a dirty hole in the ground.
How'd you get out of that hole, boy?
How'd you get out of that hole, boy? I don't know if that's how they talk, but that's how I imagine it going down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not great. So got out of prison at 22 and did not stay out of prison long. Let's just put it that way. Yikes. Just yeah, born bad, guys. Just born bad. Not.
Oh yeah, had nothing to do with how his life ended. Went the first 22 years.
Yeah, the first 20 years of his life, nothing to do with that. It was everything about being born bad.
I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
He had nowhere to go. Had to become a criminal. That was it. It was predestined, predetermined.
Yeah.
Continue. God.
In late December, he headed back east again, stopping on his way in El Paso, Texas, where he would acquire a .32 caliber snub-nosed revolver. And there was no looking back. The words hard luck inked across the fingers of his left hand would be a bleak foretelling of the fates of the strangers that would soon cross Cook's infamous path. On December 30th in Lubbock, Texas, mechanic Lee Archer was driving when he picked up Billy Cook, who was hitchhiking along the roadside. Shortly after this small act of charity, Cook pulled the gun on Archer and robbed him of $100 and forced him into the trunk of his own car. Cook would steal the car, driving north with his victim still in the trunk. Archer would escape near Oklahoma by popping the trunk latch open with a tire iron. He was shaken, but safe. And he was lucky.
So that film, it was made in 1953 after the events that we are talking about. It's directed by Ida Lupino, and it was based on this case. And if anyone has seen it, I'm pretty sure I've seen it at least once. But it is based around this story. Yeah, it's not entirely accurate, but it's based on a true story kind of thing, where it's we can basically keep one detail accurate and kind of like embellish a lot more, so we can still say based on a true story.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the Doors song "Riders on the Storm," Jim Morrison, I guess, had read about this case and wrote that song. This case inspired that song. A little bit of trivia for you.
There you go.
So there you go. So go see The Hitchhiker. I don't know where you'd see it. Maybe on streaming. I didn't look it up, but it was made in 1953. I might be able to find it on like streaming services like Prime, maybe. TMC if you have it. Who will be his next victim? You? No, not me. Not me, actually,
Ooh.
poster. Thank you. No, it's very ominous, but no, thank you.
A lot luckier than the next people that Billy Cook happened upon would be. Cook ran out of gas while driving the stolen car somewhere on Route 66 between Tulsa and Claremore on New Year's Eve. Carl Moser, his wife, and 3 children were on a road trip themselves towards New Mexico when they stopped to help what they thought was an innocent stranded motorist. Unfortunately, the stranded motorist that they stopped to help was Billy Cockeyed Cook. For the next 72 hours, Moser drove Cook around before stopping for gas and food in Wichita Falls, Texas. At the filling station, Moser attempted to disarm Cook, but Cook was stronger and quickly overpowered his victim, then fired several shots at a grocery store clerk who attempted to intervene on Moser's behalf. Over the next 2 days, Moser continued to be Cook's captive chauffeur, driving him through New Mexico and Texas before finally ending up near Cook's hometown of Joplin, Missouri. It was then that Billy Cook decided he wanted to continue on his own in the Moser's car. Instead of stranding the family and leaving, he turned his gun on them, massacring the entire family along with their dog.
And that is when Billy Cook lost me.
Along with their dog.
Along with the dog. Dude,
That's a
why?
cold-blooded bastard.
That is a cold-blooded Yep. I was like, but what? Okay. Sir, me and you're going to have a conversation. Like, no. Yeah, and it denies he killed anyone. Well, of course he's going to deny. No, I did it.
Yeah. Oh, those people. No, yeah, that was totally me.
Oh, that family of 5. Well, that's
Yeah, exactly, Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie says, why the dog, though?
Yeah, why the dog, though?
I mean,
that was my question.
Not that I'm sitting here being like, yeah, just shoot as many people as you want, but why the dog? You can just let the dog go. The dog will run away out into the wild. You got to be messed up to be like, and I'm going to kill this dog that obviously is not going to like tell anybody of what I did. Like,
is the dog going to run to the police station and go like, he's over here? Like, no, like I'm pretty sure that the dog's not going to do that.
Yeah, it's bad enough you just murdered an entire family, but
yeah, that was the cherry on top of the shit sandwich. That was that. And what kind of sandwich, you ask, would have a cherry on it? A shitty one. Yeah. So,
and this, right here, you can talk about how crappy a childhood this guy had, how the system was against him, how he was never given a chance at this point. Like, I don't care what you want to say, like, oh, he was born bad. No, I think society done this man wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we could feel bad for him in that kind of idea.
Right, in that context.
But once he's a man and he makes that decision to murder people, it's a whole family, mom, dad, couple kids, a dog. Like when you do that, like my sympathy goes straight out the window. Like, exactly. It sucks. It's your childhood sucked, man. I wish it could have gone better. But ultimately, you do have a choice at some point. When you're a child, you don't have much of a choice. You're going to in and out of foster homes, preparatory schools, all that kind of stuff. You don't have a choice. You just got to go do whatever society tells you you're going to do. But once you're a grown man, like you have a choice. This man decided to then start murdering people.
Oh yeah, it was a conscious decision because he even told, like, that was the quote directly from him, is that he was going to live by the gun and roam, like it was the fucking 1800s in the Wild West. And it's like, dude, like, so obviously he was the world done me wrong, so I'm going to do the world wrong. And it's like, that's not really how you know, that's not how things go. Yeah. Like you had an ability to make a choice to go a different way and to try to make your life better and to try and come up from that. Like, granted, it's not going to be easy. Nobody said it's going to be easy, but like you had two paths to choose from and you chose the one that was gun shaped.
Yeah.
So,
and you could have just been like, you know what, the world done me wrong, so I'm just going to grow up to be a jerk. I'm going to be that guy who cuts everybody off, never uses his blinker, throws, trash on the side of the road. Like
toilet paper wrong on the roll.
You could be that guy. You could just be like, life done me wrong. I'm going to be a jerk the rest of my life. Nobody will like me and whatever. There's a different kind of special that when you're like, the world done me wrong, so I'm going to start murdering men, women, and children.
Yeah, there's a distinct line between I'm going to knock over all the napkins at Starbucks and I'm going to go shoot people in the face. Yeah. Like, yeah, like, no, that's definitely a choice was made and it was not a good one.
No.
So, there's that. Let's see if it gets better. Spoiler,
I'm sure it will.
Spoiler, it doesn't. So let's keep going.
He would dispose of their bodies in an abandoned mine shaft before taking the car and continuing on his journey. The car belonging to the Mosers broke down in Osage County, Oklahoma. The car was covered in bloodstains and bullet holes. The receipt for Cook's gun was also found in the car. He managed to make it back to Blythe, California, where he had previously worked as a dishwasher via buses and hitchhiking. But in order to continue his rampage, Cook now found himself in desperate need of another vehicle. Meanwhile, the law had started to catch on to Billy Cook in the form of one Deputy Sheriff Homer Waldrop. Waldrop had seen Cook around town and had become suspicious of him, so he went to a motel where he had lived previously with a friend. Waldrop was hoping to question the friend about Cook and why he was in town, but instead was taken by surprise when Cook himself jumped out from behind the motel room door and snatched the officer's sidearm.
That definitely took a turn. Also, I'm pretty sure that guy wins an award for probably one of the most unfortunate names I've ever heard. Homer Waldrop.
I was there. Once Homer popped up, I'm like, get him, Homer.
Get him, Homer. You go get him.
And Homer screwed up.
And then Homer pissed it down his leg.
Homer got unfortunately. Yeah.
Somehow Homer managed to fumble it on the 1 yard line. I'm not sure how that happened, but
I don't know.
Like, I kind of pictured it like Homer. He kind of like burst into the motel room and he was like, I have some questions about, oh my God.
Oh, you're right there. Oh, I didn't see you there.
Oh,
you gave me a start.
And he took my gun and I peed a little. Oh God. That's how I pictured that going. Like, I just pictured that going, that just went south very quickly. I'm sure it went from 100 to 0 real fast.
Because you had me, Homer. You had me. You were like, wait, I think I know who done it. I think I know where he is.
That guy's
he was
weird.
Solid detective work.
Yeah.
All the way up until you went to get your man and
somehow I don't know, tripped on your own gun holster and fell down. I don't know. Oh no. And Tamara goes, no. It was a very Homer moment in more ways than one. It's unfortunate. Well, let's find out what happens to Homer, shall we?
Nothing but good things, I'm sure.
It's all up from here.
Waldrop was then taken hostage by Cook, and like the others, he forced Waldrop to drive him around aimlessly. During the drive, Cook bragged about killing the Moser family, not seeming to care that he was confessing these crimes to an officer of the law. Perhaps he was that confident that he had the upper hand. After driving about 40 miles, Cook forced Waldrop to pull over and made him get out of the car. He tied Waldrop's hands behind his back and told the deputy to lay face down in a roadside ditch, saying he would shoot him in the head. Instead, Cook stole the patrol car and drove away. The patrol car gave Cook a distinct advantage in easily locating his next victim.
So Homer made it out okay, but not so much for the next one. But yeah, I found it incredibly ballsy that he was just like sitting in the seat going, yeah, and then I popped them and their dog, and he's like driving like, what the?
Especially if you're going to do that with the cop you just done kidnapped.
Yeah.
And then you let him live.
Yeah.
Like,
and then you tell him
like,
all
listen,
of that.
Homer wasn't winning any awards previously, but neither is Billy at this point.
No, that's like rule number 1 in the criminal handbook is you do not immediately confess your crime to a cop and then let him live, I guess. Like, Billy. So on the scale of who deserved to die, apparently that dog deserved it more than Homer. I'm not really
Homer
sure
must
how.
Homer must be a sweet talking, like silver tongued devil, because
Maybe. I mean, you saw his photo.
Or maybe like he's just like, I feel so bad for you, I can't shoot you, Homer. I'm just gonna leave you in this ditch.
Homer, you dropped your gun belt and peed a little and everything, so just go lay down over there. I feel too bad to shoot you. Just go lay down over there and count to 100. Oh Lord. Anyway, yeah, the next guy didn't go so hot. Apparently he wasn't as charming as Homer. So
great.
Under the guise of a traffic stop, he would pull over traveling salesman Robert Dewey. Cook then kidnapped Dewey, forcing him into his car. At some point during the drive, Dewey would attempt to wrestle the snub-nosed revolver away from Cook, the car veering off the road and into the desert during the struggle. Dewey was wounded in the attempt, but things would take a much worse turn when Cook turned the weapon on the salesman and shot him in the head execution style. Dewey's body was later discovered near the abandoned patrol car in Oglebay, California. Cook would take Dewey's car and drive across the border into Mexicali, Mexico, where he came across and swiftly kidnapped 2 American prospectors, James Burke and Forrest Damron. By the time of this kidnapping, though, the dragnet was beginning to slowly close around Billy Cook. All law enforcement agencies across the U.S. Southwest were on the lookout for him, plastering the search area with wanted posters featuring Cook's sinister-looking mugshot. Meanwhile, his 2 new captives would be in Cook's unfortunate company for the next week, crisscrossing all over Baja California. When interviewed after Cook's arrest, the 2 men said they never attempted to escape because they could never tell if Cook was really sleeping, since his right eye always remained stuck open.
I laughed at that too. It was like they went to go sneak out and it was just
sleeping with one eye open. I don't.
Apparently it works.
I love
hold
like
their
they're
shoes,
just
like,
sitting
sneaking
there.
out
They're both like sitting there being like, "Is he asleep?" I can't.
Go over there. I don't want to go over there. You go.
I don't know.
over
Like
there.
wave your hand in front of him. Is he? I
do
don't know. Oh, geez.
Like just
because you gotta wonder, like because he had them for days and days. Like, why didn't they try to escape? Like what were those days like? You know, all that kind of stuff. When they said like we weren't gonna because we couldn't tell if he was asleep or not.
like but realistically, here's the thing. Like realistically, you guys were with this man for a week. You're gonna tell me that you don't think he slept that entire week? That he just sleeps with like
just that one eye staring down.
Like he had to have slept though. It was a week. We're not talking about like a day or 2 days. It was.
I know.
I would have just chanced it at day 4.
I know. I would have
for it.
like screw it. Just grab
Like-
something heavy and slam it down on that open eye. I don't know.
Like, wasn't that in the Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe? He got tired of the old man staring at him, so he killed him and buried him under the floorboards. Like, dude, just like, I would have just gone like this, pop, and just poked the eye and just ran.
That's right.
Like, he got to catch
I don't
me.
know.
He can try. Good luck. He can't see me now.
That's
can't.
crazy.
I was like, because I thought the same thing immediately. I was like, well, why didn't they try to leave? They were with him for a week. And then immediately my question was answered by, we didn't think he was sleeping.
That eyeball just staring at us the whole time.
That creepy eyeball that never closed. I'm like, then close it. with
Close it
a
for
book. With a book.
It wasn't like, oh, he had us tied up the whole time. There was just no way.
No, apparently they could like come and go and like
They just
wander
They were
around.
afraid of that eyeball.
That's that eyeball. He's like, I could see, and they're just like, it follows us when we walk around the room.
Yeah,
Is it following you
I
too?
don't
It's following me.
it's weird.
That's the all-seeing eye, I suppose. Ooh, Illuminati. Anyways, well, things take a turn for Billy, unfortunately, because the law is now onto him. There are now, wanted posters plastered everywhere, and the net is starting to quickly close around this gentleman. So let's find out how he gets caught. Do you want to bet on dramatic shootout or anticlimactic oops?
Homer just wanders in.
He
I
catches
got you
him
now.
after all. He's
Oh,
like,
he took my gun again. Damn it.
it was me the whole time, and oh no, he's got my gun, and I'm a captive too now. He sits next to the other guys. What you doing? God damn it, Homer. Get out of here.
Let's find out.
Let's find out, shall we?
He forced the captives to drive him back into Mexico once more to Santa Rosalia, perhaps in an attempt to avoid U.S. authorities, but this move would only backfire, leading to his uneventful capture. Luis Parra, the police chief in Santa Rosalia, recognized Cook from his wanted posters. He walked up to him while Cook was eating at a local diner, snatching the .32 from his belt, and arrested him on the spot. That same day,
So very uneventful. Walked up to him in a diner, went, look over there. You're going to jail.
And
Snapped the
that's
egg out
how
of
it
his hand.
ends.
And that was how the crime spree ended, was that somebody literally walked up to this man in a diner, probably slapped the pancakes out of his hand, grabbed his gun, and went, you're going to jail, asshole.
And I just figure, like, Billy probably was just like, all right.
Yeah, you got me at this point. Like, you literally walked up and disarmed me. Which, if I was his captives and I saw that, I would have been so mad at myself at that point. I'd have been like, we could have done that. That was an option the entire time. That was an option. I could have just walked up and taken his gun out of his pants. I want to go home now. I'd have been so mad.
Gosh.
may I please have your gun, sir? Well, let's find out what happens to Billy after this, shall we? After his rather uneventful capture.
January 15th, 1951, in Joplin, Missouri, Police Chief Carl Nutt and Detective Walter Gamble were playing on a hunch. Forensic examination of the mud found in the Moser's abandoned bloody car showed a high shale content. Shale and zinc were often found together in deposits in mining areas. Cook had been raised in an area near several abandoned zinc mines, and in one of those mines, in the flooded shaft, floated the bodies of the Moser family. Things happened quickly after that. Cook was returned to Oklahoma to face federal kidnapping and murder charges for the killing of the Moser family. Ever since the kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby in 1931, kidnapping had become a federal crime, and such charges almost always resulted in receiving the death penalty. Cook even told his jailers that he fully expected to be hanged. The judge, in trying the case without a jury, instead decided to sentence Cook to 300 years in prison. But this also included the possibility of parole. The public was furious. Hours after the controversial verdict, the U.S. Justice Department announced that it would honor a request by the state of California to try Cook in Imperial County for the kidnapping and murder of Robert Dewey. Prosecutors claimed to have an open and shut case. They did. It took only 50 minutes of deliberation for the jury to find Billy Cockeyed Cook guilty. He had a smirk plastered on his lips when he was handed a death sentence. On December 12, 1952, after all of his appeals were finally exhausted, Cook was strapped into the chair at San Quentin's infamous gas chamber, eagerly breathing in the cyanide fumes that filled his lungs. And in a postscript to a short and violent life, it is perhaps Cook's own words that summed up his life better than any eulogy ever could. Quote, "I hate everybody's guts, and everybody hates mine." 3 days later, his body was on display at a funeral home in Comanche, Oklahoma. 15,000 people came to view the body before relatives put a stop to the showing. A few days later, after the tide of infamy had subsided well after dark, the body was removed and buried in Peace Church Cemetery in Joplin, Missouri.
Heck yeah. That is a little, so that was a little taste at the end there. Let me get this off the screen.
That's right.
Of what you got upcoming in about 15 minutes on the brand new Cemetery Road episode for Peace Church Cemetery. 15,000 people came to view him when he died. Until relatives were really like, yeah, like, nah. Like,
it doesn't
like,
surprise me because anytime you had a killer of any notoriety or a gangster of any notoriety, they would put their bodies on display for the public, which I don't get. We definitely don't do that now.
We don't do that now. Yeah, no.
But it was a form of entertainment to come see the body of the man who done these terrible things kind of idea.
I mean, they did that with Dillinger when he was. They did
Sean
that with Dillinger
from New Realities in the chat, and he said, like, there's probably a lot of spitting happening. You definitely had people spitting on that corpse. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's probably why the family members were like, hey, we're going to stop this crap. But when it comes to Billy and his burial at Peace Church Cemetery, you are going to be hard pressed to find many murdering bastards in a cemetery with a stone saying this person is buried here. Billy Cook was buried in Peace Church Cemetery, but he was buried with no marker and reportedly outside of the cemetery grounds. So just right off, here's where the cemetery is. He's going to be buried right there. So nobody knows where he's buried. He's just buried somewhere in that area, and good riddance.
Which I think we talked. Yeah, exactly. Which I was like, I think we talked about it, and I was really kind of surprised that he was even transported back and not just buried on prison grounds where he was executed.
Which is generally what happens, and maybe it's different because maybe the people who are buried on prison grounds are the family doesn't want to claim the body, or they don't have a family member that can claim the body.
Right.
It seemed from what you did in the voiceover that there was family that didn't want his body on display, and so that just kind of tells me that he was brought back by the family. I would assume his sisters or brothers, or the siblings that he had.
Siblings still. I don't.
Dear old Papa wanted it.
He was dead already.
Yeah.
His dad died in like 19. Well, actually, I don't think his dad was dead at that point. I think if I remember
his
correctly,
dad's still alive in a mine somewhere.
He's still alive in a mine shaft.
He
turned into Gollum. He just runs out and eats a rat now and again and just runs back when the moon comes out. His dad died in like 1955, so his son was executed in 1952, so he lived like 3 more years after that. But what I thought was really interesting, like almost like line in the sand that the family had was that, okay, well, we want to bury him, bring him back home to bury him, because his parents are both buried in that cemetery. Like his father's buried there and his mother was buried there. I'm pretty sure, like as far as I could tell.
Wouldn't shock me.
There was like a Cook family plot. But they're like, we want to bring him back home, but not that close. So bury his ass outside the cemetery because we are doing the right thing, but we don't like him that much.
And it could be the cemetery that chose that they would allow him to be buried outside of their grounds, but not inside. And obviously, like a lot of mass murderers who are not buried on prison grounds or anything like that, or who aren't cremated and never seen again kind of thing.
Rid of,
they're generally buried with their family and in unmarked plots inside of a family plot, something like that. So it could be the cemetery was like, oh, okay, but not like you can't be like here. Like we'll put him out there, but we're not marking it. Where he can't be within the grounds, that kind of thing. And you don't generally want the notoriety of having someone, especially a murderer,
kind of
in your cemetery, because it could become a tourist attraction, which kind of happened anyway. One of the reasons that Peace Church Cemetery caught my attention was it's reportedly haunted by the ghost of Billy Cook. That people have witnessed a shadowy figure wandering around the woods directly outside of the cemetery grounds. And so ghost hunters, people who are into true crime stuff, do visit the cemetery because of the story of Billy Cook. So, but what you don't want is like a stone in the cemetery that people can destroy, spray paint, worship at, if you will, because we know people are just weird and sick.
Yeah, that's true.
So you don't want that. So thankfully that's not happening at Peace Church Cemetery, but there is the issue of people coming in after hours, especially whenever people think a cemetery is haunted. Generally cemeteries are open during the daytime, when
they close like 5
sundown. But people coming into the cemetery grounds after hours in the dark, there's houses all around this cemetery. So you don't want to disturb the people living around the cemetery. But also the cemetery is very old. It's one of the oldest cemeteries in Joplin, Missouri. It's right outside of Joplin. And that means it's got a lot of raised stones. It's not like a modern day cemetery where all the stones are flat on the ground and whatever. These are all old raised stones that can be tripped over, knocked over,
broken, tripped on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the people buried in this cemetery have nothing to do with Billy Cook. Their final resting place should not be disturbed because someone is not paying attention and tripping over a stone, knocking something over. So that's where it becomes unfortunate for these kind of cemeteries to have this kind of notoriety. And thankfully, because there's no like specific, this is where he's buried right here. At least we don't have that problem,
Right. Yeah. That did happen with, I do remember that from when I did the episode on Ed Gein, when he did die in a hospital. He didn't die in prison, but he died in like a mental hospital of cancer. They did bury him next to his mother, and he did have a headstone for a brief amount of time, but people vandalized it so much and kept stealing it. So they finally ended up taking it. And it's in a museum in the town in Wisconsin that he is from. It's in like a history museum. But it's like, he is buried in the family plot. So it's his mom, his brother's buried there. And then there's the conspicuously unmarked grave that he is buried in. So I'm sure it's like one of those where people want to go see Ed Gein's grave. Like, and it's people break in to do these things, which is unfortunate. Like I said, cemeteries do have hours. They're not just open 24/7. You don't just get to stroll in there at midnight. They're not generally open after the sun goes down. A lot of times for safety reasons, especially in these older ones, because they don't have lights. They don't have and you could easily lose your footing and trip and break a headstone and get hurt. And that's why they're locked up at night generally.
Yep. And Sean from the New Reality in the chat made that point as well. They need to lock it up. Well, the location doesn't have big, tall fencing or walls around the cemetery. Yeah. You could step over it. The little barrier between the cemetery and not the cemetery is literally whoop, just walk over it kind of thing. So it would take a lot to secure that place at night. And you sometimes it sucks, but you just got to kind of rely on the kindness of strangers not to disturb people's final burial places. But as we all know, people suck. So
it's true. Speaking of people sucking, also probably Billy Cook, not the only famous criminal to come out of Joplin, Missouri. Probably the more famous ones that you guys have heard of, Bonnie and Clyde, were in Joplin, Missouri. I don't know if they're buried there or not, because their bodies were.
I think they're in Texas.
I think they're buried in Texas. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but one of them, I think she was from Joplin. I don't think they were both from there. I think Clyde was from Texas and she was from Joplin, but not the most famous criminals from there. Most famous criminals from there either. I was like, what is with Joplin, Missouri? Just causing people to drive around and shoot people. Nothing else to do, I guess.
Maybe you shouldn't keep your children in holes.
Maybe that's the lesson here. I do think that is the important lesson that we've learned. The moral of the story is don't leave your children in a mine.
Weird. I didn't know it needed to be said, but there you go.
Apparently it needed to be reinforced. Maybe don't leave your, kids in a mine to be discovered by child services.
That's right. But if you want to learn more about Peace Church Cemetery and actually see what it's like there, obviously I didn't discover the grave of Billy Cook because it's in an unmarked location outside of the cemetery grounds. But it is a cool little cemetery. It's a very peaceful cemetery. And I have about 11 minutes of footage to show you guys over on the Cemetery Road channel in 7 minutes.
Right. So let's that being said, without further ado, let's go ahead and wrap things up here. So you guys have plenty of time to migrate over to Cemetery Road to watch the live stream, watch the live premiere of the Peace Church episode. Now that you've gotten some backstory about a very infamous person who's buried there, perhaps you would like to see the location for yourselves. So thank you so much, Jason. This was awesome.
It was fun.
We should do this when you come across any more true crime graves. I'm on it.
I'll give you a call. I'll be like, Vivian, I found one. It's right here.
I just woo! I got another one. So yep, brief intermission for you guys then to go potty break, whatever you got to do, pop on over. I will see you guys over there. As always, it's a pleasure, Jason. We need to go ghost hunting again soon.
Very soon.
Soon, let's do that. And then I will see you, sir, in October at the Tahoe Biltmore event, which if you guys haven't bought your tickets, go buy them now. I will make sure the link is in the comments below if you haven't seen it. It is also all over social media.
And if you haven't subscribed to the Dead Hours, do that right this very second.
Please do that. I'm almost at 500 subs, guys. Almost at 500. Close. I'm 10 away, I think. I'm 10 away. So 10 more subs to 500 and then just up from there. So thank you so much, guys. And then I will see you on the flip side in about 5 minutes. So
that's right. We'll be in the chat.
Absolutely. Stay spooky and try not to get murdered by a spree killer who shoots dogs.
It's just going to ruin your day.
Boo, Billy. Boo. Good night, guys.